2015 to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Councilman Crosskoff, and remain standing for the invocation, led by Pastor Rod Carell.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father God, we come to you and thank you for this opportunity to come together. Lord, we pray for wisdom, guidance, and direction, Lord, for our city leaders or those that make decisions, Father, that affect our community. We pray for guidance for the citizens of our community, Lord, and ask that you would keep your hand upon them. Those that need a touch from you today, God, we pray you be close to them. Lord, we give you the praise and honor for all that's accomplished here tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Roll call.
Alley.
Here.
Goff.
Here.
Greer.
Here.
Guston. Crosskoff.
Here.
Lee. Here. Torrance.
Here. Yeah, and Mr. Guston has accepted an engagement in New Orleans, and that is why he is not with us, but I think he's going to be enjoying himself the next few days. So, first item, reading and correcting of the journal.
I move we suspend the rules and dispense with the reading and correcting of the journal.
Second. Has been moved by Councilman Alley to suspend the rules and reading and correcting of the journal. Any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is communications.
Phyllis, can you enlighten us, please?
Yes. Well, only 89 people used her civic center last month. She held 5 parties and was able to return back to the city $134.07. I hope business picks up over there soon, since the road's all nice and everything now, because it is a nice place and all like that. I think it's an asset to our community, so I keep my fingers crossed all the time, hoping that it'll pick up. Other than that, nothing.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Dennis C., please.
And code enforcement monthly report. Commercial new rehabilitation permits, we had 2. Commercial roofing permits, we had 1. Building complaints, we had 10. Code enforcement complaints, we had 15. Zoning complaints, we had 1. Building consults and meetings, we had 14. Consults, meetings, and code enforcement, we had 6. Consults and meeting regarding zoning was 13. Demolition permits was 1. Electrical permits 1. Residential new rehabilitation permits 6, and residential roofing 5.
Just a little update process of getting our quotes on city streets to know which ones we're going to be able to do this year. We do have our quotes on materials, but this is the labor portion of it. So very shortly we ought to have a list of some of the streets that we're going to be able to repair this year. And one of the areas we are hoping to be able to get to is in West City Park, since there is a Cal Ripken League state tournament going to be held down there this year. We'd like to get those roads fixed so that our visitors to the community would be able to go in and have a great experience at West City Park. So we'll let you know as soon as we get those bids in.
Do we have any additional funds this year?
No, I mean, we can look, the amount of money we set aside is going to be pretty much the same, but if there are a couple others that we need to get to, we can look at the CCD fund.
I know you had mentioned that the state found they were underfunding us countywide. For did they ever make good on their promise to?
Well, we haven't seen any final numbers, so when we go looking at streets, we're going to just make the decision based on what we have. If we get some others later on, if they make some adjustments, it comes along later, we can certainly look at that.
Okay.
So, okay. Going under unfinished business. First item is Ordinance 10/2015, which was tabled last month.
I move we remove ordinance number 10/2015 from the table.
Second.
Has been moved by Councilman Crosskoff, second by Councilwoman Lee, to remove Ordinance 10/2015 from the table. Roll call.
Alley,
Yes.
Goff,
Yes.
Greer,
Yes.
Crosskoff,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Torrance.
Yes,
Okay, now you can make a motion to adopt.
Move we adopt ordinance number 10, 2015.
Second.
Has been moved by Councilman Crosco, second by Councilwoman Lee to adopt ordinance 10, 2015. Questions?
Okay.
Mr. C? Oh, there you are. Do you have anything further on, this was tabled last month, this is on the permits, inspections, licensing, registration, examination.
For the roofing?
Yes.
Yes, this would be you.
Well, no, this would be Bruce.
Okay.
He's
He's on vacation.
Tennessee right now. This basically just dropped the fee from a grand total, or from the ceiling being, I think it was, I can't remember what, I'm not familiar with this, but it drops it down to a maximum of $1,000. And everything else is pretty much the same. So it was a benefit to the builders. They don't, as far as the monies they would spend per square foot of roof.
And this is for commercial buildings or all roofing permits?
This was for, part of this was for like nonprofit organizations. They would pay a straight fee. They wouldn't be hit like a commercial building would be hit. If the commercial building was changed to have the ceiling dropped as far as the total amount they would have to pay. I think the nonprofits just pay a straight $100.
That's what it says here, yes.
So this is just for commercial and nonprofits?
Yes, that's the only changes that were made.
And it's only on the
What about
roof.
residential?
What?
What about residential? Did it change?
No, that changed.
It's under, see where it says section 15218B? It says agricultural, commercial, industrial.
Agriculture, commercial, industrial. Okay. Okay.
Any other questions? Any questions from the audience?
I get one other question.
Yep.
What classifies a commercial building? Is that anybody has like a zoned as a business?
Yes, it's being used as a commercial structure. Now, that doesn't mean that, you're taxed in accordance to usage. So that's, I don't know where that falls into the gray area, but typically if you've got a commercial building, you want to re-roof it, that's the criteria that will be set. But if you're a nonprofit organization, those in the past have been viewed upon as commercial. That has been changed to, so they can pay a straight fee. The commercial's commercial, when.
Seeing none, roll call.
Alley,
Yes.
Goff,
Yes.
Greer,
Yes.
Crosskoff,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Torrance.
yes,
The motion carries. Next item, ordinance number 12, 2015.
An ordinance to appropriate fire territory equipment replacement fund to the fire replacement budget, the sum of $26,950.
I move we adopt ordinance number 12, 2000.
that,
Has been moved by Councilman Croscoff, second by Councilwoman Torrance to adopt ordinance 12, 2015. Questions? Mike, are you familiar with this request? You're representing the fire department tonight. So Mike, if you have any questions for the fire department, Mike will be the spokesman this evening.
What are we replacing exactly?
What are we replacing? We're going to replace old outdated equipment, and also we're going to replace SCBA air tanks, 5-inch supply line, and also money for our EMT classes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Are there any questions from the audience? Seeing none, roll call.
Alley,
Yes.
Goff,
Yes.
Greer,
Yes.
Crosskoff,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Torrance.
yes.
Okay, anything else under unfinished? Okay, move on to new business. First one, you have a council appointment for a zoning appeals board. Did we get any applicants, or where are we at on that?
Well, we didn't receive anything. I don't know if any of the council members received anything from anybody, but we did not receive anything in my office.
Okay. Do you want us to just bring it back next month and try to advertise again?
There you go.
Have you advertised?
Did you advertise?
Yes,
You've advertised?
yes, I did.
But no interest?
Okay.
How many vacancies do we have? Just one?
I think it's just one.
Just one.
Okay.
Moving on, next item is ordinance number 13, 2015.
An ordinance to vacate a public alley in the city of Peru.
Move we consider ordinance number 13, 2015.
Second.
Has been moved by Councilman Croscoff, second by Councilman Goff, to consider ordinance number 13, 2015. Roll call.
Alley?
Yes.
Goff?
Yes.
Greer?
Yes.
Crosskoff?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Torrance?
Yes,
Move we adopt ordinance number 13, 2015.
Second.
Has been moved and seconded, moved by Councilman Croscoff, second by Councilman Goff, to adopt ordinance 13, 2015. Do we have any questions?
I'd like to say, I voted no on the Plan Commission for this because I had fallen when it came up. I hadn't got around to looking at it. And since then, I have looked it over, and I don't have any problem with it, Dennis.
I have drawings of this, if anybody would like to see it.
Sure.
Thank you.
I never like to, vote on anything I hadn't had a chance to look at, but after feeling better and able to do that, I did go back around and look it over. Because there was a lot of people up here that was unhappy with the situation at the time, so.
This is east-west alley, and the end of the alley there, where you see the parking lot, that had been an alley, but that has been long since vacated for Gallahan's. Bill McQueen has gone to the residents of this, and they can pick the trash up from the front instead of the back. There's 3 residents there that can do that, and there's only 2 people that actually live there. The house to the east, that's actually a garage, and there's nobody living there. And the Planning Commission did vote majority to vacate that alley, to allow that alley to be vacated.
Your description says the alley goes all the way to North Broadway. Has it already been vacated
We've got,
through the Gallahan property?
yeah, we've got record that that has already been vacated. It's just not in here, and we haven't gotten that corrected yet through the county. Tammy has to do those corrections. There is another north-south alley that runs, well, you can just barely see it on the edge of the paper. Lance has asked us to look into that to see if it has been vacated or if we need to vacate it.
Utilities have any problem with any of this?
No. Nope.
Is that alley, is that one you're talking about north-south, between parcels 19 and 20?
That was the driveway, it looks like, Steve.
Oh,
Between
the
19
driveway?
and 20 where a house was torn down.
That's not, that, I think that's been vacated, or we would see an alley drawn in there. So that's already been eliminated. There was an alley there, but it's, I didn't look into that, but I assume when you see that on GIS, that means that it's been taken out.
So all the homes have trash access on the front?
Yes,
Rather than the rear?
yes.
Okay.
And there's nobody really landlocked in any way. If the one on the end needs to get to the garage, they can via the parking lot. That'll always stay open.
Mhm.
And what was the, why did we decide to close it?
For a business, a retail store is wanting to buy up all the properties on next to Washington between Hay and Gallahan's, and they want to build a retail store in there, and they wanted to have that alley vacated to help with some of the water runoff and just have control with what's going on there. There's several.
There's no problem with that with the residents at the alley?
No, I think Lance Callahan has talked to the representative, and I don't believe there was an issue there, or he would have mentioned it to me. And I don't know. Yeah, there was some rebuttal that night, but it was voted majority to pass.
And parcels 14 through 20 are where the potential retailer is looking at moving, right?
Yes.
On the map. And
There's a representative here if you would
okay,
like to
and
talk.
those are right now zoned residential. So I assume
Yes.
it'll have to come to us at some time to rezone it.
Right, right. Now, right now, we've got it, we did a variance so they could start working there and start building there. We did a variance, a zoning variance, and we figured we could come back to that later. But since then, there's offers been made on those other properties to buy them. So,
Are all the properties along Washington that they have been purchased in?
they're pending,
Okay.
it's pending.
What was the issue at the planning commission, the planning meeting?
In case this one gentleman wanted to have access to go in behind his house, he doesn't need it now, but in case in the future he needed that, he wanted that, and the company said they would work with him to allow that. So that's just where it stood.
The overall thing was the lax. They wanted to have plenty of parking and be able to get in and out. I've talked to them around there, and there's just one person that is not going to go along with this, I don't think. Could be wrong. And, but this fellow that really was upset about being the use of his garage, he said he wasn't against the business, but that he would create a hardship, you know, for him to get in and out, and especially if he had a big truck to deliver appliances and everything. But he did say he would even move his fence back a little bit if needed to. So he was, you know, he wasn't against the building at all, and since then, I heard that they made an offer and on that, and I think quite a few people are satisfied. One individual isn't, and but that's what it was. They wanted to be able to get in and out and have enough parking places, and that's why they had to go for over on Adams Street.
You say someone is here this evening from the business?
Yes,
Okay.
representative.
Hey, Dennis, they realize that half the alleys go into,
Yes, yes. Well,
Well, sure, come on up. Thank
This is
you.
Andrew Rossell, he's the representative for this.
So I'm representing both, my name's Andrew Rossell, I'm representing both Elmo Brooks, who owns the current lots on Washington, is as well Peru Partners that's got the contract on the property. So I'm assuming that all this were to be passed and to go through, then we would start design and go forward with all the design and then have to come back to the city for all those approvals. But this is the first step in that due diligence process. So right now, we do have under contract those lots 14 through 20 on East Washington, as well as, can't remember the addresses on Adams, the two lots next to Gallahan's, the two central lots. After the planning commission meeting, we tried to work with the adjacent neighbors to come to an agreement, and that didn't go over so well. So then the planning commission voted to vacate that alley, and I guess a good faith effort was made to therefore purchase those two properties as well.
Which two properties you talking?
The two properties on Adams.
Is that 26 and 27?
On Adams.
29 and 30?
29 through
Or 29.
32.
Where there's
There's
houses,
two
where there's
double
houses.
lots.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So 29 through 32.
right. So those are zoned residential. We do have a special use variance to operate as B3 on the Washington lots that we came before the ZBA But the intent is to get those rezoned to B3. The purpose of the alley vacation was to assist in, well, not only to assist in the grading of that site and to maintain the runoff, like you said, but also that alley is a dead end stands right now. As you can see from your map, the GIS shows it going through and closer up to Gallahan's and then north. And that was apparently vacated a while back. So right now it really dead ends down there at the west end. So seeing that, you know, it's still used as a throughway of that parking lot of Gallahan's, but technically it's not public means of access. And this tenant really wanted to limit the through traffic through there just for security reasons.
Now, is there just going to be one store there?
Right.
Boy, there's a lot of rumors it's just spread wild worse. Yeah, I
I'm
heard
sure
the store.
I'm sure there's
And I
more
thought-
out there than.
I wonder, but
But the gentleman, I believe that that was brought up earlier, they have access both from Adams and from Hay, and that's the only person that really would have a.
Is that lots 33 and
issue with it
34?
right now.
The issue?
Yeah, 33 and
33 and 34.
Any other questions?
And that's just a garage that sits, that building is
Yes.
a garage that sits there?
That's yes, it's a garage and it's accessed off from Hay.
It's off of Hay, yeah, it looks like the access is from Hay.
Do you have any questions from the audience? Do we have any remonstrators here this evening? No further questions? Roll call.
Alley.
Yes.
Goff.
Yes.
Greer.
Yes.
Crosskoff.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Torrance.
yes,
Motion carries. Next item is ordinance number 14, 2015.
An ordinance to amend section 151.066 of the Code of Ordinances.
Move we consider in 2015.
Second.
Has been moved by Councilman Crosskoff, second by Councilman Goff to consider ordinance 14, 2015. Roll call.
Alley.
Yes.
Goff.
Yes.
Greer.
Yes.
Crosskoff.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Torrance.
yes,
Move we adopt ordinance number 14, 2015.
Second.
Has been moved by Councilman Crosskoff, second by Councilman Goff to adopt ordinance 14, 2015. Questions?
Mr. C., if you would.
No person shall produce any noise that can be heard beyond the property line which causes a common nuisance to the surrounding neighborhood, such as barking dog, vehicle engines, grinding heavy machines, music, or similar noises. What we have decided, or what we've tried to do, is to assign numbers, decibel reading numbers, that we can use to judge whether the noise is too much or whether it's within a spec. There are limit numbers put on this in case the situation requires that we have to get real scientific and get all our meters calibrated to national standard, that sort of thing. But what the thrust of this was to measure the ambient noise level, which I would assume this ambient noise level in this room, if I weren't talking, would probably be about 45 decibels or 50. The noise level change, which would be 7 decibel change, 7 decibels raise in the noise, would depict too much. Somebody would have to turn it down. The reason this was done is because it's like reading a yardstick. If you just read the change in a height, you don't necessarily have to start on 0. You can measure from 2 to 10 or 4 to 12. You'll still have the same distance. Decibel meters perform the same way. It doesn't matter where exactly they start, but but the change, the incremental change is the same, no matter what the starting place is. And this, first part of this is to, basically, it gave us a decibel limit overall, but it also puts in there that we use the 7 decibel above ambience. It covered commercial establishments, and it also covers the pervasive bass sounds that resonate, can be felt physically. That was added to it as a suggestion or an afterthought from somebody I was talking to about this.
I'm very much aware of the noise ordinances and what noise can add up to. And so that is a residential area. We have put up with a lot of noise around through there for years off and on, and I'm very concerned about that. Again, I think noise goes back to quality of people's lives, you know, and so.
What do you do in a temporary situation like somebody cutting the grass?
I don't know.
This is just from...
I'm just asking,
This is just from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., correct?
Right.
Okay.
Well, that's music, the 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., right?
Yeah.
But the other noise, such as
It's any time of the day.
vehicle engines or barking dogs or heavy machines, those kind of things.
You're going to have a lot of grass complaints this summer.
I recall an incident, it's been a good many years ago, when the Boyers wanted to, down there by the Catholic and Lutheran cemetery, they wanted to do a lot of grinding, and of course that'd make a lot of noise, you know, and stuff like that. So people really were upset, so they voted that down from being in there doing that, and so grinding does make a lot of noise sometimes. So not knowing what's going to go in there, I go back to that noise bit that I have a problem with.
I understand it's probably kind of hard with the present ordinance, you know, saying that if it's a common nuisance, it's kind of hard to define, you know, how much noise creates, I guess, a common nuisance. But, you know, with putting some calibration to it, seems like that makes sense. How did you come up with the 7 decibels above? I mean, that.
I did a lot of research on some of the other noise ordinances throughout the United States, and I did some confirmation of this with some of the policemen that work the night shifts and such, that they would go down and use, well, there's some apps. Let me interrupt my flow here. There are apps available for your smartphones that measure decibels, and that makes it very convenient. And we were using those apps to basically define or calibrate and see if we were all within the same ballpark. And that was done on the night shift by police, and they gave me that information back. So I basically got it from the internet, I studied it, and then I confirmed it, you know, in the field.
So 7 decibels above, is that loud? Is that pretty loud? Or, I mean, you know, I have no idea.
Well, 7 decibels above ambience would be 3 decibels is doubles the sound pressure level. 6 decibels doubles that. So it comes up, but if you're actually listening to it, it's hard to measure it without the meter. I would assume my voice right now is pushing 10 or 12 decibels above what the ambient level of this room would be, just because of the microphones, what have you. That's an assumption. Could be more.
I noticed that you've got grinding and heavy machines, music, or similar noises. On the grinding equipment, what kind of a noise level would that be?
The same.
Does that depend on what they're grinding up? Does that have anything to?
But noise is noise.
Yeah, that's true.
Whatever they're grinding.
Yeah.
If it makes noise.
Okay, since you're mentioning that, and I'm not I think this is good. But no, to a point I am, but I don't want to pass an ordinance and then have people start picking at it.
Yeah,
What happens for these people who trim trees and throw them in a grinder?
that's pretty loud.
I know it's pretty loud.
Yeah.
I mean, how do we count, how do we,
You know, if it's temporary, if it's not a nuisance, it doesn't, like I've got, on one establishment, I've got 4 calls pending on it right now, waiting on me to do something about it. So if somebody's grinding up a tree, that's pretty temporary, but if you've got something that's consistent, at least we have a means to identify it and do something about it. That other stuff, I think it's just the cost of doing business on some of that. You know, if you're going to grind up a tree or you're going to mow the yard or whatever, that's pretty temporary.
and I certainly agree with that. I don't want to pass something and then somebody come down here and say, well, you passed this and they can't do that. I'm just, I'm just trying to keep us out of future. I don't want to get like a
I agree.
thing that just happened at the State House last week.
And I think what I've done here is reasonable. And actually, I was working this with the Planning Commission, and we kicked this around quite a bit. I think it's reasonable. Not to say that maybe down the road, something might come up, and we may need to adjust it. But for a start, I think it's well within the ballpark.
Do you think that it would be helpful if there was exceptions for stuff like a temporary situation, like the grinding tree stump or chopping up all that? Because in the wording here, because I know you said that stuff is temporary, but it's not in the wording of the ordinance that if it's temporary, there's an exception.
That'd be something to think about. I'm going to say you're wrong. I think it's valid.
Because I think something like cutting the grass is probably going to be 7 decibels, isn't it?
I've got a list of, I should have brought that with me, but of what makes noise, how much noise it commonly makes, that sort of thing. I can't remember what grass cutting is. But one of the criteria on this is that you measure if you've got a household that's complaining about the noise, some of this criteria, it could be done inside the home, so we can take the ambient level inside the house, and then we can see how much noise or how much that ambient level changes when that noise is introduced. For example, music or something like that. When the song stops, then we can get a reading. And some of these apps show a graph, so it'll actually, you'll see this graph just running at a certain ambient noise level, and then bam, when the noise pops, it'll go up, and you can graphically see what it's doing. So it's really easy to define.
Yes, sir.
If I heard you right, didn't you say this was only in effect from 10 o'clock p.m.?
No.
Come on.
No,
What'd you say?
it does.
No.
What'd he say?
No, he says
It
it's
does,
only effect from 10 to 7. That's only.
10.
From the source of input between 10
Yeah,
PM
I'm
and
not worried
7
about that.
AM.
I'm not worried so much about that. I'm worried about this grinding and heavy machines. With the rumors that I've heard.
Complaints you got on commercial property or just residential?
I have both. The first bullet is for residential. The second one refers to commercial establishments.
That's what I think. Residential complaining about commercial.
Big pardon?
Residential complaining about commercial.
Yeah.
About what level, I have neighbor, a young guy, the boom, the music is up so in the middle of the night, like 2 or 3 o'clock. I know it would just happen once or twice, but what if it's like reoccurring? About what level would that be?
I don't know.
I mean, is that close to that 7?
That would be the third bullet on there, which the third bullet down on the noise criteria is what would cover that. And it was consistent. It stayed the same as 7 decibels. And I did find this revisions of this ordinance on the internet as well in other cities, so I adapted. But yeah, you would have to measure that. It depends on how far away. if you're sitting right next to a car that's doing that, it's pretty loud, but if you're a block down the street, it's quite different, a lot lower.
And this is only going to be triggered by somebody calling in a complaint, right? We're not going to be driving up down the streets with decibel meters looking for it.
No.
It'll be because of a complaint.
Right.
Exactly. And right now, there are some complaints, and there's no way to really enforce it. There's no guidelines, there's no criteria that's actually readable. So,
And that's the best thing about what you've accomplished here is before you were counting on the human ear to say, yeah, that's loud, you can't really do that and find it.
Yeah.
So you're putting parameters on, at least they have some tool
Yeah.
that they can use to describe it.
measure.
So this is just a guideline, basically.
Yes.
Good.
Yes,
It's
Mr.
all-
Faust.
All measurable guidelines.
Excuse me. She didn't tell me. Two questions. One is, when does this ordinance cover? I mean, time-wise of the day.
It covers 100% of the day except for music, and that's from 10 a.m. to 7 p. or 10 p.m. to 7 a.m.
So, gentlemen, ladies, and I know where you're talking down at the old fertilizer factory.
Yeah,
That to me is industrial area down there. And you cannot put, I mean, they're not gonna be grinding 24/7. If you have, and I'm just using, they will probably have a project and maybe do it. Well, if it's during the day, then, you know, to me, as people, you have to accept a noise level. Now, if it's at midnight and you're trying to get the kids to sleep, that would be a different story. And you're talking about, the way I see it, I've got a fellow next to me that's going to do a roofing job, and they're on there at, well, thanks to Mitch Daniels, we don't have early morning now, but as soon as daybreaker, he starts hammering and does that all day long. I think, and I understand and I'm kind of with and understand the noise level, I mean, I really do. I got one of those apps too, and I still don't know how to read it. But anyway, I think this ordinance, I mean, I would like to hear it be read. I think there's more to it. Now, I realize you guys have already probably read it, you understand it, and the whole thing. I'm talking about out here on this side. By Dennis saying, well, him talking here, he was 9 decibels above the ambient level of this room, that's not very loud. I mean, it isn't. Now, I know farther away and inside house and stuff is going to change. I personally am uncomfortable with this ordinance as the way it reads now, my understanding of it. Okay, so that's all I have, but I think, I mean, you can't, you know, you get a bunch of roofers going 90 miles an hour, you're gonna be far above, I mean, where I live, I can hear them down on 7th Street. And I think another thing you need to take into consider, thank you, is where you live. We're kind of up on we're up on the hill. You take something that goes on down on 7th, and the sound rolls right up. And it's really louder than probably the guy who lives next door to it. It's just the way the sound travels. Something else. Trains coming through town. What are you going to do with that? I know, now that's federal law, and that's a whole nother ballgame. But I'm saying these are things I believe you need to look at. I think there needs to be an ordinance. Don't have a problem with that, but I think it needs to be thought out a little bit. And I'll probably eat bologna sandwiches for supper.
Any other questions? Kurt, yeah.
What? Yes.
Dennis, how is this this ordinance designed, or how do you anticipate it will be used in regards to well, there's one moped in particular that doesn't have a muffler that loves to cruise Main Street, and then motorcycles in general. I would assume during the day it's not, no one's going to be calling and complaining about it as much as we would like to, but in the evening, 10 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock at night, motorcycles that are in excess of 7 decibels anyway.
Now, what
And then mopeds with no.
this says, no person shall produce any noise that will exceed noise levels of 64 decibels, daytime or nighttime, measured 25 feet from the noise source, or the same level criteria measured at the property line, which causes a common nuisance to the surrounding area, such as da, da, da. So it's got to be 64, above 64 decibels, 25 feet from the source. And then the 7 decibels was on music. Commercial establishments play music must limit the level of unreasonable or disturbing noise that escapes into the streets or is heard inside nearby residences by requiring that sound levels may not exceed 56 decibels as measured from inside nearby residences, or 7 decibels over the ambient sound level as measured in the street. So we're saying, okay, the street cars are driving up and down the street, you get a reading on vehicular traffic, and then you can't be more than 7 above that. So if this motorcycle goes flying down the road or whatever, and it's 7 decibels higher than the ambient noise, then you're in violation. Or the music is being played 7 decibels higher than the outside ambient noise. So, and that the music is limited between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. The other ones are 24/7 for the daytime or nighttime.
Excellent. So the
64.
ordinance is in, at least in theory, designed to deal with some of that as well, right?
That's right, because you can, if you've got that kind of complaint, somebody's doing it, I'm just assuming it's just hypothetical, but you could have an officer sitting there with his decibel meter, and then, bam, up she goes. And if he's 25 feet away from that noise source, which isn't hard to do, that's measurable.
So that was, the reason I asked that question is the next thing is, what plans do you have to make this actually enforceable? Is the police department on board, or are you going to go talk to them?
No, I've had some help from them.
So this is something we actually plan on enforcing?
Yeah. At night shift, I'm a early to bed sort of guy. But, I had some of the night shift officers actually doing readings for me and giving me the feedback. I ask them to do certain things, and they do it.
What's your structure then for violations? Is it the first time you get a warning, the second time you get a fine, or?
I have to define it first. I don't know what it would be. Disturbing the peace, whatever that falls under, I guess. I don't know.
One other thing, if I may, it's kind of like, okay, when I was flying this kind of stuff, yeah, you can get a reading that will shoot straight up. Maybe somebody drops something, or somebody accidentally turns up the stereo too loud or whatever. It's going to shoot up, but if it comes back down, then they're not in violation, except for that one time.
Well, it says a common nuisance. Dropping something on the floor is not considered a common nuisance.
But if it spikes, you have got, if that ambient level shoots straight up to, not ambient level, your noise level, shoots straight up to what, over 9? Or whatever, 7, then you're in violation. Maybe you were doing something around the house, or the neighbor. Okay, let's take the bar down there. Somebody accidentally turns up the radio a little too loud. There's an officer there. This is all what if. He takes a reading, and it's way high. They have broken the law.
No, it says common nuisance, John. Common nuisance is not a temporary.
All right.
A common nuisance would be a continuing act, not a one-time.
Where a complaint is filed.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
Any other questions? Further questions from the audience? Mr. Bell?
Yes, Wayne?
One question I have about that is that you can have a next door neighbor, if you're putting a new deck in or something, it'll take you a week to do it. 25 foot away is only the length of a car, and a circular saw is about 100 decibels, and we're talking about 65 or 60-40 you said here, so you'd be over the limit. So if somebody wanted to call and complain.
You've got to be a distance away from it. It can be measured inside the house, and it has to be that.
So they can't be sitting out their porch and complain about, well, you're building a deck and I don't want to listen to it?
No, there's got to be some common sense in this. Yeah.
Well, you hadn't said that before about, you said inside on the music, but you didn't say inside on the other stuff. That was, okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Council? Roll call.
Alley?
Yes.
Goff?
Yes.
Greer?
Yes.
Crosskoff?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Torrance?
Well, it is something. Yes.
Okay. Motion carries. Okay, next item is ordinance 15, 2015.
An ordinance to amend Chapter 151, General Requirements section of the Code of Ordinances to add Section 151.081.
Move we consider ordinance number 15, 2015.
Second.
Has been moved by Councilman Crosskoff, second by Councilwoman Lee to consider ordinance 15, 2015. Roll call.
Alley?
Yes.
Goff?
Yes.
Greer?
Yes.
Crosskoff?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Torrance?
Yes.
Move we adopt ordinance number 15, 2015.
Second.
Has been moved by Councilman Crosskoff, second by Councilwoman Lee to adopt ordinance 15, 2015. Questions?
Oh, Denny.
Popular man tonight, Denny. Might as well just stay up there for a while.
Let's just stay up here.
We had a scenario where a resident was running a generator that was capable of putting out 25 amps of current.
Did you pass this out to everybody? Did you?
Yeah, I think everybody's got it. Yeah,
Okay.
which is on that handout
Right.
there.
Yeah.
25 amps of current, they were running through an 18, or what it was, 18 gauge wire, I believe. But anyway, it was good for 10 amps, so we've got a mismatch there. That was a 75-foot extension cord running into the house, and they were backfeeding the house through a wall plug that was an old-style wall plug with the cloth wires and such, and it was, they even had an adapter on it, a 3-pin to a 2-pin adapter, plugged that into the wall, and they were backfeeding into the fuse box with that, and they were running electric heaters and things like this, and that little 15 amp outlet was building up some heat, and it was dangerous. And what the goal with this is just to set some rules and some criteria on how this should be done, and if someone were to make a permanent generator hookup, the criteria for that, how to safely put that into a breaker box. And if you're going to do a temporary installation, basically it says extension cords must have current rating equal to the generator output. So if we got a 25 ampere output, we need a cord that'll handle that kind of current. And specific appliances shall be attached directly to the generator via the extension cord and not backfed through the house. And I mentioned definitely temporary installation cannot backfeed through house via inside or outside outlet from generator source of power. That's it in a nutshell.
Any questions?
It's a pretty scary drawing that you gave.
That also cuts into the city's budget if they're doing extra hours of work, extra paperwork. I can understand why you'd want a $5 fee.
Besides, they're going to have a chance, if they go through the chamber, they're going to have a chance to have how many garage sales?
5 or 6.
5 or 6 garage sales, and there's no $5 fee on those. But they do get free advertising, it sounds like, on the
Right.
chamber's garage sales.
Mhm.
I just think that that it's an unnecessary burden for somebody to have a garage, to have a yard sale, garage sale, to have to come to City Hall and pay $5 and get a permit so they can have a yard sale when what we're trying to fix is the fact that there are people who are breaking the ordinance that's already there. I think, I understand it'd make it easier to enforce the ordinance, but just for the sake of making an ordinance easier to enforce, to add a fee and a process to something that most people take for granted that they can do.
So what's your suggestion?
Enforce the existing one.
Enforce the existing one as it is?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me how.
I mean, if there's a complaint, and this is going on for an extended period of time, if there's a complaint, you know that there's a yard sale going on, and
But
if it lasts
it's hard
over a
to
week.
prove, it's hard to define unless we know the starting place, the starting point of it.
If there's a complaint, you can go and see that there's one, and then how
But if
long it
it's- If
lasts.
it's not documented, then we have to go to a lawyer or somebody to talk about it. It's all verbal. Nothing has been written, nothing has been said.
If, the way that the ordinance is written right now, if somebody complained about a yard sale that's gone on a week, and they should have ended, and they call your office and complain, and you come, you see there is a yard sale, take a picture, get documentation, whatever, and if it lasts a week, then you have ample legal evidence that it's lasted for more than a week. At that point, it'd be lasting 2 weeks, but then we're not asking everybody who wants to have a yard sale to have to go through the process of getting a permit.
It's your call. You guys decide what you want me to do.
I've thought over this, and I know there are people that, take advantage of the situation, but I feel like, why should we make everyone pay for, a handful of people who do carry it way over? And so I was thinking, why can't we just not have a fee, but fine those who were there for 2 or 3 weeks, and don't take care of it, Why can they just pay for it through a fine, as opposed to everybody having to pay $5 permit and go through the paperwork?
I got a question, Danny. Parkview Heights does an annual garage sale 2 days a year, one time in June, I believe it is. There's 200-some homes in our addition. Generally, half of them participate in the homes. Are you going to charge everybody in there $5? I mean, it's just,
No, not something like that.
they've been doing this for 25 or 30 years that I know of now,
And that's,
same day.
I mean, I'm sure we could adjust that and say no. I mean, that's more common sense. We're not on a witch hunt here. We're not trying to
No.
slap everybody. Just a few.
Except for the $5. Except for the $5.
Yeah. So tell me, what do you want?
I'd rather not see a permit to have a garage sale or a rummage sale.
Didn't they try
Because-
this about 30 years ago?
I
Something like
wasn't
back
born
in
then.
25 to 30. I'm just asking a question. They should have had an ordinance for garage sales back then. I remember talking about it. It's been a long time ago. It's similar
I
to
know
this one.
cemetery.
I don't know.
I have an issue with us recording it into the database, In other words, the city's going to know, how many yard sales you've had for the last 10 years. I mean, that's, to me, is not really necessary. I mean, why do we need to have a record of who's had yard sales,
Well, what,
I mean-
to go back, to piggyback on your thought there, what happens if you have one every weekend? You do it Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then stop, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And that's what that's what they're trying to eliminate. You're not going to have it a week, but you've had it for 3 days, and then you have it every weekend, every weekend, every weekend. I think that's what he's trying to.
There's already an ordinance, you
Sure.
can only have 2 a year, so it's not gonna be anybody's hobby, and they're not gonna be doing it every weekend.
Yeah, and that's, if there is an issue like that, they would still be breaking the ordinance after
There's people that do that.
doing it
They
twice.
should. There's an ordinance that says you can do it twice a year, so.
I like the idea of the permit because you've got a record of how many they've had. I mean, you could have weekend garage sales, and it's going to be hard to keep count of that. I like the idea of this. They come up here, they get one of these, you keep track of how many garage sales they've had, they're going to get 4 more garage sales right here that they can participate in on the Chamber's deal. That seems like that's, 6 garage sales a year. That seems like a pretty good number to me. And so I think it's a good idea.
But you may not be hurting. Some people need to maybe have yard sales, garage sales, if they're in a low income bracket, I mean, 6 is a lot to you, but maybe not to somebody who really needs a little bit of extra money to pay their utilities or whatever,
But we already have an ordinance that
Yeah, well-
limits them to 2, and if the chamber gets permission, I don't know whether they have to have permission for this or what,
Yeah.
to have 4 more
Will they?
garage sales, but
Yeah, and that's the thing, though, going back to Cheryl's point, there's a lot of people that live below poverty in our city that use garage sales to help with payments, and these same people are trying to work and share a vehicle, and they got to make it down to City Hall on City Hall hours and go pay a $5 fee. It's not a big deal. If you've got money and you're fine, it's the people this is helping them out. It's a cumulative effect of all these things that it ends up being a bigger deal to them than the average person who doesn't have these issues.
I would rather they have a garage sale or rummage sale than to have a drugs or meth, process going on to make a little extra money. I mean, there's not a big comparison money-wise, but
I don't
I'm
think
just
garage
saying,
sales
you know,
can
you,
stop somebody from cooking meth.
I call for the question.
no, but you never know.
Pardon?
Call for the question.
Question's been called.
Let's do it.
Councilman Alley is called for the question.
roll call.
Alley,
Yes.
Goff,
Yes?
Greer,
No.
Crosskoff,
Yes.
Lee,
No.
Torrance.
Yes.
What was the tally? Did they get 4?
4-2.
Okay, it's 4-2 in favor. Motion carries. Okay. Next item is ordinance number 17, 2015.
An ordinance to amend section 151.042 of the Code of Ordinances.
Move we consider ordinance number 17, 2015.
Second?
Has been moved by Councilman Crosskoff, second by Councilman Goff, to consider ordinance 17, 2015. Roll call.
Alley,
Yes.
Goff,
Yes.
Greer,
Yes.
Crosskoff,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Torrance.
Yes.
Move we adopt ordinance number 17, 2015.
Second?
Has been moved by Councilman Crosskoff, second by Councilman Goff, to adopt ordinance 17, 2015. Questions?
In our zoning book, 151, chapter 151, it's got all that. We have a B1, which is residential business, and we have a B3, which is commercial. There's also a B1 in there, which is
B2.
somewhere between
B2.
B2, which is somewhere
Yeah.
between residential, thank you very much, somewhere between residential and commercial, but it leans more towards commercial than it does residential. There are over 14,500 parcels in the city of Peru, and we have one B2 in all those parcels. And that B2 is actually up on the hill across from the Indiana State Police Post and not even in the city of Peru. I got this data by downloading all of the data that we have in WebQA, which has all the zoning definitions in it, and then I did a sort, and I found one single B2, so it's not like I went through 14,500. I'd love to take credit for something like that. I didn't. So, and the reason is I've had some confusion from people who are calling in wanting to start businesses in Peru, and they would like to do a B2. And I explained to them that the county only has 2 categories. They have a commercial and a residential business. They don't have anything in between. So their commercial is actually our B3 and the residential is our B1. So I would like to eliminate that B2 category in our zoning criteria and just move on.
And we have no B2s in the city.
But
We have no B2s in the city.
we have 0 in the city. The only one we have is out there on the hill.
Sounds like it's just housekeeping to me.
Yep.
Questions? Questions from the audience? Roll call.
Alley?
Yes.
Goff?
Yes.
Greer?
Yes.
Crosskopf?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Torrance?
Yes.
Motion carries. Next item, Resolution 4, 2015.
A resolution of the 2015 Miami County Comprehensive Plan.
We have a motion?
Move we adopt Board Resolution 4, 2015.
Second.
It has been moved by Councilman Crosskopf, second by Councilman Goff, to adopt Resolution 4, 2015. Questions? We have Mr. Ben Bontrager with us this evening from American Structure Point, and he will bring you up to date. This is in regards to the book that we got to you last week concerning our comprehensive plan. Hopefully you had a chance to look into that and get some questions for Ben, but he'll bring you up to speed on where we go from here on this plan. So Ben, the floor is yours.
Would it be helpful if I just introduced myself as Dennis to not change up the process this evening? Good evening. My name is Ben Bontrager. I'm the Economic Development Director with American Structure Point. We're an architectural engineering and planning firm located in Indianapolis, Indiana. And we were hired about a year ago by the City of Peru and the Miami County Commissioners to update the county comprehensive plan, which you had a draft of before you about a week ago. This is a comprehensive plan that covers the entire county, so all of Miami County, City of Peru, Converse, Amboy, Macy, Denver, Bunker Hill. So it is a truly countywide comprehensive plan. So we coordinated with just about everybody we could in the county. We established a steering committee that included the mayor and Jim and Brooke back there. We've got a few others. We tried to find representatives throughout the county to covering a wide variety of interests to participate on our steering committee that helped us through the process of the entire thing. We also did stakeholder meetings where we invited in subject matter experts to talk to them about specific things like planning and zoning. And Dennis, who finally escaped, he participated in that meeting with us. We also did a public safety meeting where we talked to fire, police, et cetera, utilities, economic development, workforce development, I don't forget a few, housing. We did several of those. So we brought in people that were industry, what I would call industry or subject matter experts in each of those, and talk to them about issues in Miami County, things that they would like to see done. We also held 2 public meetings, one of them early on in the process to kind of talk about existing conditions. And actually, I think, Ms. Torrance, I think you participated in that meeting we had at here downtown. And then we also did several meetings throughout the county. We talked to the agricultural community as well. We actually did one meeting up in the northern county part of the county and one in the southern part of the county. We wanted to try to touch as many people with as many different interests as we possibly could to discuss the various issues in the county, and then try to find solutions and or recommendations for how you might be able to move forward from those. So this, as you can see, this is a resolution. So this is not a legal document. It is a guide for decision making. So it offers recommendations and suggestions on things to do in these various categories to help move the community forward in various quality of life issues. So I can walk through some of the specifics if you want, but I know you've been here for a while already, and I'm hoping you've had a chance to kind of look through it, but it touches on a number of different types of things. But this is meant to be a document that you can use to help in your decision making. It's what we call a living document, something that you're constantly looking at, because this is meant to be forward thinking. So whereas comprehensive plans in the past in Miami County have been kind of okay, let's look at what happened the last 10 years, let's update it to what the current conditions are, but it wasn't really forward thinking. This is meant to say, okay, here's where we are right now, here's where we want to be. Let's try to think of some of those strategies to help us to get where we want to be. So it's very action-oriented, very forward-thinking, something you can kind of look at and say, all right, we said that in this category we want to do these things over the next 3 to 5 years. Let's see how we're doing on these categories. We've looked at timelines, we've looked at costs, we've looked at responsible parties. So if it says the City of Peru, then you have somebody you can kind of hold accountable for that strategy, or the Miami County Economic Development Authority, or tourism, or something like that. So it looks very specifically at each of those, and you probably saw the matrix in the back. But it covers a lot of issues, a lot of topics, and is meant to cover some very broad subject matter. So there are some things specific to Peru in there. There are some things that really don't address Peru, but it's meant to cover as many topics as you could on a broad range of issues throughout the entire county. And one thing I know the mayor is interested in seeing this adopted is this is a requirement as part of the state of Indiana Stellar Communities process. They require a current comprehensive plan as part of that process. We just submitted the letter of interest a few weeks ago for that program. They're supposed to be making announcements on finalists tomorrow. I don't want to, everybody cross their fingers and say a little prayer tonight, so we'll find out tomorrow. But what we've been able to do is we've, in addition to this comprehensive plan, and the mayor has been on a committee that's helped us look at different types of projects that the city of Peru would like to accomplish over the next 5 years. So regardless of whether the city becomes a stellar community or not, I think there's a plan for in making strategic investments in the city of Peru also, that I think we're looking forward to helping move some of those ideas forward regardless of what happens with the state's process. So that's also part of this. One other thing I would hand out, and if Jim wants to take a few moments just to talk about the steering committee, I've also got, the steering committee was kind of our guide through the entire process. We met with them on a regular basis, bounced information off of them. And at the end of the process, then we had a support letter from the steering committee. I'll pass around a copy first, so you all have one. Just a support letter on the comprehensive plan. And then the second page kind of gives some more specifics that we got from each one of those committee members on the comprehensive plan. So you can see who is on our committee. And just as a final note, this does come to you with a favorable recommendation from the Plan Commission. They reviewed it a few weeks ago. They were introduced to it last month, and at their last meeting, then they gave a favorable recommendation and forwarded it on to you for consideration for adoption. I guess if you had a chance to look through it and had any comments, what I think we could do tonight is if you had specific things you said, I'm not really sure about this, maybe we can make an adjustment here, or, the future land use map for the city of Peru, we're not sure about this. Maybe we can talk about what some of those things might be. If you have any questions or comments like that, we can make sure to address those tonight so we can get those included.
Jim, do you have anything like that?
I would just add a couple, just to go off of what Ben had said. I think the exciting thing about this plan is the fact that it is different from other plans that we've had in the past, in that this assigns responsibilities and accountabilities for different agencies, and therefore requires us to come back together, whether it's the Miami County Planning Commission, the city's Planning Commission, over a period of time to just review where we're at and evaluate and make changes as necessary. Again, I think what's happened in the plan, or in the past, is that when we say we did an updated comprehensive plan, we just took what happened over the last 15 years and updated the plan, rather than continuing to look at it occasionally, and I'm suggesting either semi-annually or annually, and making adjustments as we go along. So I think that's the exciting part about this plan as compared to others. So.
This is very forward-thinking, as Ben mentioned. If you're going to be looking at where you're going to take your community in the future, you do have to have a vision. You have to have a plan on how you're going to accomplish it. I think American Structure Point has done a great job of working with us and coming up with this final draft that you have before you, and I would encourage. Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions from the audience? Roll call.
Alley?
Yes.
Goff?
Yes.
Greer?
Yes.
Crosskoff?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Torrance?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And that concludes our business this evening, unless anyone else has anything to come before us this evening. If not, a motion to adjourn to be in order.
So moved.
Have a second? Is there a second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Hey, here, I want to talk to you.